Good morning and welcome to Politico's Competitive Europe Summit. My name is Joanna Roberts and I'm the policy editor here at Politico. And I'd like to welcome Marcel Lechanteur, President of France, Benelux and EU Affairs at Lilly. Thank you for being with us today.
Great to be with you, Joanna.
Now, I mean, the pharma industry in general is facing a very interesting time at the moment. Donald Trump is threatening to impose the first tariffs on medicines since World Trade Organization agreement over 30 years ago. He's also threatening to erode farmers' US profits by lowering drug prices to match countries in Europe. And here in Europe, the EU is reforming farmers' market monopoly rights, likely to limit them. But some in the industry are hopeful that the forthcoming Biotech Act will be more favorable towards the sector. And that's not to mention the general sort of competitiveness themes and conversations we've been having. So Marcel, I do want to get into talking about how the health sector fits in with some of the wider themes we've been discussing at the conference, such as strategic autonomy, growth, obviously, and competitiveness. But first, I just think I'd like to dig into the US environment a little bit, because it does impact quite a lot on Europe. There's been news overnight that President Trump has paused his tariff threats on the pharma industry because he wants to do more deals with companies like the one he struck with Pfizer, which is where Pfizer committed to lowering their prices in the US and selling drugs through the Trump RX platform. Is Lilly planning to strike a similar deal?
Well, I mean, first, it's great to be with you. You understand that we will discuss with every administration, not only the US administration, every administration in the world first, before making any declaration. But I think what's very clear is that trade is part of competitiveness, okay? And our goal as an industry in general, our goal in Lilly is to speed the access to our drug to patients. So whatever it's trade, whatever it's other barrier, we will work hard at making sure that our medicine are going to the citizens of the world. That's really the first element. The second part, I think, in your question, you mentioned two important words: autonomy and competitiveness. And I think the tariff and the overall environment is part of competitiveness. So the question for me on the table is, how do we react, obviously, for us as a company, to the US administration, but every company will fix their price as they wish and should be committed to deal with the administration, obviously. For us, the question is also, in Europe, how do we make sure we keep competitiveness? I hope we will discuss that. But if it's not with trade, it has to be with something else.
So can you give us a flavor of your thinking about how you're going to deal with the White House and particularly the drug pricing demands in the US?
Well, it's very clear. Everybody has heard the playbook of the US administration. It's about making sure that we are ensuring more resource. We have a global manufacturing footprint, which is very important in the US. We have announced a lot of new investment, but we have also a very strong platform outside of the US. So for us, our view of that is to make sure that we can deal correctly with the different administrations, including the US. We will do whatever it's possible to meet and get an agreement, obviously. That's the goal. But that's the same goal we would have with any administration in Europe. We meet the different stakeholders. We want to reach agreement. We don't discover drug to keep them in the fridge or in our R&D operations.
Sure. I suppose it is like dealing with any other administration, and then in a way it really isn't, right? It's, I wanted to ask a couple more specific questions before moving on to the broader thing. I know that when we're talking about the pressure on the pharmaceutical industry to bring US and EU prices more on a par, I guess that could go two ways. Is you lower the prices in the US or you raise them in the EU. I know that Lilly announced a price change to its weight loss drug Mounjaro in the UK, sort of after Trump had demanded sort of a more equal par. Are there any plans to raise the cost of Mounjaro or other drugs within Europe?
The cost of Mounjaro is aligned in Europe with a European price that is the same. So that's the answer. The question behind the question is how do we collectively make sure that we have enough competitiveness? And I think that's a very important question for me. The US administration we speak about the tariff right now, but overall the question is a question of competitiveness. It's not just tariff, okay? And the question you have about the price raised the question of value. So there are three very important elements. Are we having an environment that is basically valuing innovation? Is this environment competitive in terms of attractiveness? And do we make sure that at the end of the day, we can secure access to patient? Because that's the end goal, okay? Everything is interrelated. If you have a system where innovation is not valued enough, and you refer to the differential of price, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is to say in which condition you can access to those drugs. Then it means that your environment overall is not valuing innovation. These are not great conditions if you want to have a vibrant pharmaceutical sector. But it's not enough. You need other conditions, and maybe we'll discuss that later.
Mm-hmm. I think, well, sort of in terms of the other conditions, one of the other things that Trump's pushing for is for pharma companies to have more production facilities within the US. I know that Lilly's committed to spend $50 billion on 4 new production facilities in the US, some of which was announced before Trump came into office and some after. So just talk me through the decision-making. Why the US, not Europe? Has that US investment come at the expense of investment in Europe? And how would you sort of sum up the two environments for investment?
The driver force in our case, okay, I'm not going to speak about other company. I think after we can discuss the condition for competitiveness, but the driving force for us is the pipeline. The pipeline and the new medication and what we have require for us to expand the manufacturing agenda. We are expanding that manufacturing agenda, obviously in the US, as you refer, but not only. We have state-of-the-art facility across Europe, and we have investment ongoing, okay? So the driving force is first, can we deliver what we commit to deliver? Then the question of tariffs comes. In our case, because we have a global manufacturing, we believe we are in a good position to discuss with the different stakeholders. That's the net answer. Mm-hmm. But if we did not have the pipeline that we have, that would be a different situation for us.
Yeah. So if we just talk specifically about then the sort of wider regulatory environment within Europe, I know some of these new factories that had been developed in the US are to do with to produce APIs, so the active pharmaceutical ingredients to go into the supply chain, which is somewhere that Europe's been traditionally strong in manufacturing. What are the regulatory barriers or the regulatory differences that you face in Europe as opposed to US for these type of products?
Well, I mean, let me first reframe. We make decisions on manufacturing that are based on our need and capacity, okay? That's very important. The debate about API, it's an interesting debate. We also have API produced in Europe. We have API produced in the US. But I think the question is, do we have strong and resilient supply chain? That's our first mission, okay? And then come the rest. It doesn't start the other way around. You know, it takes us several years to build manufacturing site. It takes months to get regulatory approval. So we don't make those decisions on the short term or on a blink of an eye. There is a bigger agenda. Now, in terms of difference, whatever it's for manufacturing decision or just operations decision, it could be research, it could be partnership. While you think about the speed at clinical trials, let's start early in the chain. There are other regions in the world that are faster than us. In Europe, that's for sure. You look at regulatory decision. You can compare the math. We will not discuss the exact number here. But by any standard, the US regulatory decisions are going much faster. And then you look into the speed of access to patient. Then it's different. There are a lot of difference across the different countries in Europe, some of them going very fast, others going very slow. And then you look at IP, very critical also. Is it strong? Is it predictable? Is it competitive? So now you look at those 4 or 5 elements, and obviously the competitiveness is really driven by the sum of all of those elements. And we look at that when we make decisions. So I think the answer about competitiveness is not so much just to look at what's happening right now with tariffs and with those things, is to look at us and ask a fundamental question. What's our vision?
And what is our vision? Or what should our vision be?
Well, my personal view here is the following. If I compare how a company would operate, we align behind a vision, and we put the resource in people, capital, the plan to align on that. And then eventually we will have policies and all what follows. I think in Europe right now, the question is, do we have a set of regulation policies that are in multiplicity, or are they aligned in coherency, in small number, behind that vision? If that vision is that we want to have strategic autonomy and competitiveness, well, then let's ask 2 questions. Strategic autonomy. I think health is part of it. Everybody thinks about defense, but defense is critical. Health is critical, food, data, and energy. With that, you can do a lot of things, correct? If you have an agenda that is geared at that, and that you want to be competitive, then your set of policies and regulation have to be simple, coherent, and aligned. In our sector, concretely, if you are making clear movement to have, I would say, stronger and compelling protection of innovation and IP, you're going to do better.
And in terms of health being part of this wider competitiveness conversation, obviously 5 years ago, health was very much at the center of European policy making on everyone's minds, and got a big boost in terms of both funding and attention at an EU level. We certainly feel that that's dropped off. What's your view of sort of the view of health as in part of this broader EU policy framework?
Yeah, I think health historically has been discussed within its own ecosystem, if I can say, with the classic stakeholder and all that. The current geopolitical agenda is putting us in a bigger type of framework when you have commitment, obviously, from authority, and like they should, to basically increase the defense budget, it has a mechanistic impact on the rest. Our view, my view, is that it needs to be part of the deal of strategic autonomy. It doesn't make, we will not have any autonomy if we are just having an autonomy on defense, because then you are weak on energy, or you're weak on health. So this is why I think you need to start with those 4 or 5 key pillars. And if you want autonomy, you need to secure autonomy around those different pillars. Health is a very important element. Let me just give you a quick one. We speak about the US, and yes, 15 years ago, Europe, 30 years ago, Europe was the pharmacy of the world. You look at our ranking today, absolutely, eyes are on the US. But I don't think they are only on the US. I don't know if you have seen the Global Index for Innovation 25. It's an interesting one. You look at the top 10 nations. China entered the top 10, and basically Germany is further down now. Okay? Now, so that tells you that they are basically putting more efforts on innovation, more efforts on patents, because they have a plan and a vision, and it's quite simple. So at the end of the day, I think it's not so much about the number of policy, it's not so much about looking at different things, but putting things together in a simple, pragmatic plan. It's about time to execute, you know? And it's this time to execute is critical right now in health, but in the pharma sector in general.
Yeah, and I think with the pharma sector, I mean, everyone has a stake in it, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to patients. What is at stake here if, Europe doesn't get its act together, I guess, on competitiveness? Are we going to see medicines withdrawn from the market? What's the sort of worst thing that could happen?
Well, unfortunately, people get sick, and they will take drugs. So the question is, do you want to have some of them, imagine, discovered produced and exported from here? Or do you want just the place to be a consumer place? I think at the end of the day, that's quite simple. My view is that we need to have both. We need the genius from all over the world to discover a new molecule that can basically push back disease for which we had no solution so far.
Okay, as you can see, our time is up, but thank you ever so much for joining me on stage. Please do remain seated. I'm going to invite on stage Catherine Carlson, who's going to be moderating our next discussion on private or public funding Europe's future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.